Ever feel like you're stuck? Like you're going in circles, repeating the same patterns even when you know they're not working.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's like that snake.
Ouroboros.
The Ouroboros, yeah.
Great.
The one eating its own tail. And today, we're going deep on that, diving into Conrad Reicher's Unlocking the Ouroboros to see how it applies to all of us.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening can probably relate to that feeling of being stuck, especially when it comes to their personal lives. Like Riker says, past traumas, the way we talk to ourselves, and fear. It can all make us feel trapped.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Starting with past traumas. How do those experiences, sometimes from years ago, keep us in those negative cycles?
Well, think of it this way, right? Our brains are kind of like a forest. Each experience carves a path. And the more you walk that path, the more defined it gets.
The more you think those thoughts, the easier it is to think them again.
Right. And trauma is like a flash flood, it carves this deep groove. So even years later, our brains are still following those paths, even if they lead to pain or self-sabotage.
Yeah, it's like our brains are on autopilot, just following the well-worn ruts.
Exactly. Riker talks about this woman, Sarah. She had these thoughts, I'm not good enough, I can't change.
We've all been there.
Yeah, and these thoughts were so ingrained, they actually led to unhealthy habits. Like she was fulfilling her own prophecy.
That's tough, but I bet a lot of people can relate to that feeling of being stuck in those thought patterns. So how do we break free? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is just recognizing it. Like Sarah, you got to see those negative thoughts for what they are, echoes of the past, not facts. And then seeking professional help can be really powerful.
Yeah, therapy. A therapist can help you see those thought patterns.
Yeah, and they can help you create new pathways, leading you out of that rut.
Makes sense. Okay, but it's not just the past, right? Riker also says that fear plays a big part in this whole Ouroboros thing.
Oh, absolutely. Fear of the unknown, of screwing up, even fear of succeeding.
Fear of succeeding. That sounds crazy.
It is real. I mean, think about Kodak. You know Kodak.
Yeah, the camera company?
Yeah, they actually invented the first digital camera.
No way, really?
Yep, but they were so scared of changing their business, changing what was working, that they just sat on it. And well, we all know what happened to Kodak.
Wow. I mean, that's a lesson right there.
It is. And it shows how important it is to face our fears head on. And that's where, Riker suggests self-reflection as a key.
So taking a good hard look at ourselves.
Yeah, like holding up a mirror, understanding the root of our fears and how we behave. Steve Jobs, for example. You know Steve Jobs.
Yeah, of course. Apple.
Yeah. He swore by meditation. He said it helped him cut through all the noise and tap into his creativity.
It makes me think of like journaling or mindful. Are those the kinds of things Riker recommends?
Totally. Practices like that help you become an observer of your own thoughts, your own feeling. You can start to see those patterns, the negative ones, and learn how to challenge them.
This is about training your mind.
Yeah.
Being more intentional, less reactive.
Instead of being controlled by those emotions, the fear, the anger, you start to understand and manage them. Is that where emotional intelligence comes in?
Bingo. Riker says that emotional intelligence is huge, not just for feeling good, but for relationships too. It's all about understanding your own emotions and the emotions of other people.
Okay, but how do you actually get better at that?
Well, let me tell you about John. John had a real problem with anger. Stress would get to him and he'd lash out.
I think we all know a John.
Right, and it was hurting his relationship. But through this workshop, an emotional intelligence workshop, he learned to regulate his emotions. So he learned how to recognize those triggers and what to do about them.
Exactly. John, he took control. He didn't let his anger control him. And that leads to another big piece of emotional intelligence, empathy. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes, even if you disagree with them.
Empathy, that's a big one.
It is. And it helps us connect with others in a real way. Break free from those self-destructive cycles,
But how do we move from understanding these concepts to actually changing, what's the next step?
Goal setting. Riker, he's all about setting goals. Clear, specific goals. He tells a story about Jim Carrey. Years before Jim Carrey was Jim Carrey, he wrote himself a check for $10 million.
10 million.
Dated 10 years in the future.
Did he actually make that much?
He did. And that's the power of visualization. When you really picture yourself achieving something, your brain starts working towards it.
Is there like science behind that, or is it just wishful thinking?
No, there actually is. Research is showing that visualization can actually rewire our brain. Like when you vividly imagine something, your brain can't tell the difference between that and reality.
So it's like we're training our brains for success.
Exactly.
Okay, we talked about past traumas, fear, looking at ourselves, emotional intelligence, setting goals, visualizing. What else? What's next?
Well, Riker also talks about this thing called a growth mindset.
Uh-huh.
It's this belief that we can grow, that we can learn, that our abilities, they can be developed. It's the opposite of being, stuck with what you got.
Like when people say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, that's the opposite of a growth mindset. Think about J.K. Rowling. She got rejected a ton of times before Harry Potter got published.
Yeah, but she stuck with it.
Right. She had that growth mindset.
So we're not just talking about positive thinking. It's
Yeah.
about believing that you can actually change and grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's about looking at challenges as opportunities, not threats.
Wow, this is a lot to take in. Past traumas, fear, self-reflection, emotional intelligence, goal setting, a growth mindset, visualization.
It's a lot, but it's all connected to this idea of breaking free, right?
Yeah.
Breaking free from the Ouroboros, getting unstuck.
And there's more.
Oh yeah, tons more. Riker gets into the specifics, how to actually put all this into practice.
Sounds like we'll need another deep dive to cover all that.
Welcome back.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Traumas, fears, negative thoughts. It's a lot.
It is.
But how do we actually, make a change? Where do we go from here?
Well, that's where Riker introduces this idea of the first step.
The first step.
Yeah. It's one thing to understand all this stuff, like in our heads,
Right.
but it's another to actually do something about it.
So it's not enough to just read the book and nod along.
Right. You got to walk the walk.
We have to actually apply these ideas to our own lives.
Exactly. Riker talks about this thing. He calls it analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah, it's like we're stuck overthinking everything and never actually making a move. It's like we're always preparing for this race, but never actually running it.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
So how do we get unstuck? What's the first step?
Well, Riker says it starts with awareness. We have to see those self-destructive patterns.
The ones we talked about, like the negative thoughts, the fear.
Yeah, all of that. We got to bring it into the light.
Okay, so we see those patterns. Then what?
Then you can start making choices, conscious choices about how you respond to them. Riker suggests starting small, don't try to change everything at once.
Baby steps.
Exactly. Pick one area you want to work on and focus on that. Let's say you want to stop procrastinating. So instead of trying to do every single thing on your to-do list, just start with one important task.
Day.
Yeah, just one. It's about building momentum.
Proving to yourself that you can actually make a change.
Right. And as you start seeing those little successes, your confidence grows and then you can take on bigger challenges.
So action creates confidence, which leads to more action.
Exactly. It's a positive cycle.
And that reminds me of what we were talking about with goal setting. Riker's big on that, right?
Huge. He's all about setting clear, specific goals. Remember Jim Carrey and his $10 million check?
Yeah, but he also talks about process goals,
Right.
Not just the end result.
You got it. So instead of just focusing on losing 20 pounds, you might set a goal to exercise, 30 minutes 4 times a week.
Right. So you break down the big goal into smaller, more manageable steps.
Yeah. And that way you're more likely to stick with it, even when things get tough.
He even talks about visualizing your goals.
Yeah.
Like actually creating a visual representation.
Oh yeah, it's like making a roadmap.
A roadmap to where you want to go.
Exactly. It helps you stay focused. You can track your progress. It makes it feel more real.
So we've got our goals. We're taking action. We're tracking our progress. What about visualization? Where does that fit in?
Well, Riker, he reminds us that visualization, it's a powerful tool.
Yeah, we talked about that.
But he goes deeper, It's not just about seeing yourself achieve the goal. It's about really experiencing it in your mind.
What do you mean?
Like engage all your senses. Don't just see yourself crossing the finish line. Feel the wind on your face. Hear the crowd cheer. Feel that sense of accomplishment.
So the more real you can make it, the more effective it'll be.
Exactly. And Riker says to do it daily, like a meditation practice.
And don't just visualize the end result. Visualize the steps you need to take.
Exactly.
So if your goal is to write a book, you'd visualize yourself sitting down to write every day, feeling the keyboard under your fingers, the words appearing on the screen.
That's it. And this all connects back to the growth mindset we were talking about.
Right.
Riker, he has some great tips for developing that growth mindset.
Like what?
Well, first, you gotta embrace challenges. Don't see them as threats, see them as opportunities.
Yeah, learn and grow.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. So when you hit a roadblock, instead of saying, I can't do this, you ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
How can I use this to get better?
Yeah, and that brings us to another key part of a growth mindset. You can't give up. When you hit a setback, you got to keep going.
It's like that saying, fall down 7 times, stand up 8.
Exact. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the process.
I love that. It's like it takes the fear out of failure.
And it's also about being open to feedback. Not just praise, but but constructive criticism.
So being okay with being uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, and don't forget to celebrate the wins, no matter how small.
Oh, that's so important. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, we are. We forget to acknowledge how far we've come.
And those little victories, they help keep you motivated.
They do. They keep you moving forward.
This reminds me of what Riker calls self-efficacy,
It's that belief in yourself.
that you can actually succeed.
Right. And it's like a muscle, you know? The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
So the more you challenge yourself and you succeed, the more confident you become.
Exactly. And then that confidence fuels you to take on even bigger challenges.
It's a beautiful cycle.
It is. And throughout this whole process, Riker, he really stresses the importance of self-care.
Self-care, yeah, that's crucial. We can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. Got to take care of yourself, you know? Physically, emotionally, mentally. So you have the energy to keep going.
So things like exercise, meditation, spending time in nature.
All of that. Connecting with loved ones too.
It's about finding what fills you up, what makes you feel good.
Exactly. And make it a priority.
This is great. It's like we're building this toolkit, for transformation, for breaking free from those old patterns and becoming who we're meant to be.
I like that. A toolkit.
Yeah.
And there's still more tools to add. Riker talks about lifelong learning, mentorship, giving back.
Wow, this is really powerful stuff. We'll definitely have to come back to this. So we're back, diving deeper into unlocking the Ouroboros.
Yeah, really getting into the nitty-gritty.
And we've talked a lot about personal growth, working on ourselves.
Right.
But I'm curious, in this last part, how does all this apply to our relationship?
Oh man, that's a great question. Relationships, I mean, they can be a real breeding ground for those Ouroboros cycles.
Totally. I mean, relationships are amazing.
They are.
But they can also bring up a lot of, those self-sabotaging patterns.
Absolutely. And Riker, he actually dedicates a whole chapter to codependency.
Dependency.
Yeah.
That's when you rely on someone else so much for your happiness that you lose yourself.
Sure. Yeah. You get so caught up in the other person's need, you kind of disappear.
And I imagine that can create a lot of problems.
Oh yeah, big time. Resentment, frustration, you name it. Riker talks about this woman, Sarah. She was always in these relationships where she felt drained, like she was giving and getting nothing back.
And it sounds like she was looking for validation outside of herself.
Yeah, she was stuck in that Ouroboros cycle.
Never realizing that true happiness, it has to come from within.
Exact. And Riker says that, codependency often comes from a lack of self-love.
And a fear of being alone.
Exactly. We're so scared of being alone that we'll do anything to hold on to someone.
Even if it means sacrificing our own needs.
Yeah. And ironically, that often ends up pushing people away.
Because we're not being our true selves.
Right. And that's why Riker says, healthy boundaries are so important.
Boundary. That's a buzzword these days. What does he mean by that?
Well, he's talking about knowing where you end and the other person begins.
It's like having your own space.
Yeah, being able to say no without feeling guilty, and taking responsibility for your own well-being.
It's not about shutting people out.
No, not at all.
It's about creating a space where both people can thrive.
Right, where you can both be yourself.
And I bet self-care plays a big role in that too.
Oh, absolutely. Riker says self-care in relationships, it's not it's essential.
Because if you're not taking care of yourself, how can you take care of, your partner?
Exactly. When you're feeling good, when you're taking care of your own needs, you can show up for your partner in a much better way.
It's like filling up your own cup so you have something to pour from.
Exactly.
This all ties back to what we were talking about before, self-awareness, emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it all comes full circle.
It's about becoming a better version of ourselves so we can have better relationships.
Right. And Riker, he really stresses the importance of persistence too,
Because it's not always easy.
No, definitely not. There are going to be times when you fall back into old patterns, those fears come back.
Backs are part of the process.
Exact. But the key is to not give up, Keep going.
J.K. Rowling, all those rejections.
Exact. Imagine if she had just given up.
We'd never have Harry Potter.
Right. So don't let those setbacks stop you, Keep believing in yourself.
Wow. This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
And Riker, he gives you so many tools, so much to think about.
He does.
If someone's listening and they want to dive deeper into all this, where can they find Unlocking the Ouroboros?
It's on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Well, this has been another great deep dive. Lots to reflect on.
Has.
Until next time.